Q&A session.
So thank you very much to Reyes and Agbesi for a great presentation. Unfortunately, Reyes couldn't be with us for the live Q&A portion. My name's Andy Gerd. I'm a Director of Product Marketing at Metadata, and I'm going to be the moderator as Agbesi does his best to answer your questions. So you can submit a question, as you probably know by now, in the question box below the video and click submit. So I'm going to kick off with the first question. What was the most challenging part of the project for you, Agbesi?
Yeah, so for me especially, the part that was challenging was having to change the checkbox fields in Rave to single radio button fields so that we could match the coded value of the controls that were used, the checkbox control that were used in Inform. The coded value there were different from what they usually are in Rave. In Rave, the checkbox is usually returned like a 0 or 1 as the value, but in Inform, they were able to use other types of values like -1 or other things. And so in order to make that match, we had to we had to change the usual control types of checkboxes. We had to use radio button, and so we had to create dictionaries for this single radio button fields, which normally would have been checkboxes, but in this case they were radio button, so that the outputs, the coded values that will come out of those fields will match the extracts from Inform, so that we can minimize the modification, the programming modifications that the SAS team at Chimerix would have to do, because that was a big part of the goal here. So for me, that was the most challenging part. It was tedious because there was quite a few checkbox fields that we had to set up that way. But in the end, it was important because it helped to minimize the programming time and modification time for the SAS programming team at Chimerix, since they already had all their SAS programs set up according to the output, the data extract output from Inform. So this was very helpful to them. So it was all worth it.
Great, thank you. And we've had a question come in from Andrew, and the question is, Agbesi, did you run into any issues around field ordinals or anything else when making the changes and uploading the ALS?
No, as far as I can remember, we didn't have any issues with field ordinals. I think usually when your programming fields, you don't see the field ordinals in Rave. But when you download the ALS, you can see them in there. But we didn't have to, it didn't give us any issues. The usual ALS type issues that we would encounter with the like external links, it's saying that you have external links, that kind of thing. We had a way to work around those. So in terms of ordinals, I don't remember us having any issues with those.
Great, thank you. So, I mean, obviously it's been a really kind of challenging project, tight time scales and so on. And you talked a little bit about, some of the learning experience, but, what's the most important thing you've learned throughout the whole process?
Yeah, so for me, the important thing I've learned about during the whole process is how flexible Rave can be, right? So I've worked in Rave for so many years, but knowing this has showed me more how flexible Rave can be, and having the option to use the ALS, the architect loader spreadsheet, to make changes faster and much easier than try to do it in the system, like a wholesale type changes, like changing, like creating a single item radio buttons, creating single item data dictionaries to be used for those fields that I mentioned earlier that we converted from checkboxes to single radio button fields. Having that option is important. So the architect loader can be very helpful for situations like this during initial build, where you have to make a lot of changes and wholesale type changes like this. And in the past, my past experience, we've used the ALS to add like SAS labels to fields. If the study was, for example, built and they didn't have SAS labels for all the fields, you could use that for those kind of things. And so having the option, just knowing that it's there to use the ALS to make this type of changes for this kind of scenarios was very helpful. So that's something that I say I learned during this process.
Great. Thanks, Agbesi. Yeah, it's really encouraging, obviously, to hear that the flexibility and robustness of Ray VDC plus the ALS capability, really kind of helped you there. Was there anything else you did? I mean, I think this is actually very special, very unique project with very specific challenges and great things that you did. But was there anything that you did, anything else you want to sort of cover that you did that you think that was really particularly specifically unique to the project?
Yeah, so one thing that we have to use that we haven't done necessarily in the past when building studies, at least during the initial build phase, is to having to review the data extracts from another EDC system, like in Inform in this case. So we had to review the data extract from the Inform database that was initially built. We have to review that to make sure that we get the right variable, the correct variable names that would eventually get to the SAS programmers in the data extracts. So we had to review to make sure, because we did the build looking at the annotated CRF from the system, from the Inform system. So some of the variable names and how they came out with the nesting, all the nesting that they did in Inform, the way they came out was slightly different from what was what showed up on the annotated CRF. So we had to make sure we reviewed the actual extract, the actual data extract that came out of Inform to make sure we got the right variable names to match the right fields or the right control types fields in the system, right? So to make sure that we what eventually gets to the SAS programmers from Rave would match the system, that the program that they already have, the SAS program, so that they don't have to do too many modifications. So having to do that review, and Reyes and I had meetings, and we're working meetings where we reviewed these data extracts to make sure that everything matched, or most of it matched 100%. And the ones that didn't match were minimal, and that we would communicate that to the Chimerix SAS programming team and biostatisticians, so that they are aware that, okay, we did most of the work to minimize their changes, but there were some that, due to both systems being different systems, that we couldn't necessarily match exactly. But most of the things we had to work through, once we reviewed the data extract and compared and did it a few times, we were able to make most of the output match. So that's one thing that I would say has been unique to this particular project, because usually during a Rave build, you may have during UAT, you may extract the data from a test environment to see how it looks, and everything is in order and as expected. But, having to review from another system and, comparing and trying to match things is been something that has been really unique to this project for us.
Yeah, I have to say again, I've been kind of super impressed hearing about the whole story, the kind of background to the situation, and how kind of challenging that was, and how impressive it is that the teamwork between Chimerix and yourself, Agbesi, and your team at Amencefs, I think is just absolutely absolutely, superb, and it's been really interesting. I hope for everybody here next in this session, hearing about your particular case study and experiences. So with that, I'm going to really say thank you to you, Agbesi, and please pass on my thanks next time you talk to Reyes, and I hope we'll be talking again sometime, and maybe have a new story to tell again next year. So
Yeah, thank you
with
so
that,
much. It's been a pleasure. So, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Sorry, but yeah, it's been a
no,
pleasure. Thank you everybody for following us and for listening to our story. Thank you.
great. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you next time.